Hello everyone, I'm Elfals, and welcome to another match analysis for Season 10 of the Whooper Club League. Last time, I covered one of the most intense draft league matches I've ever played, in which I took a narrow 1-0 victory against Illogic and his Buffalo Bouffalant to go up to a 6-0 record for the season. This time, I'm up against Stevie and the Baltimore Oricorios, and despite this having been a tough season for him, I'm actually kind of intimidated by the team he drafted, and I know he has the capacity to play pretty well after his very nice performance in the multi-battle format of Season 9. I had a lot of fun when we teamed together last season to pick up a win. Anyway, we're going to get right into the team I'm dealing with, which consists of Talonflame, Haunter, Yuxi, Absol, Magneton, Poliwrath, Mawile, Rhyperior, Appleton, Corsola Galar, and Dottler. I see quite a few good value picks in there, and the team has featured a lot of pivoting around through the bulky team members such as Yuxi, Magneton, and Rhyperior, before switching to their more Glass Cannon style Pokemon to either break or sweep. I do like the team style for that reason, but I think it's fallen short just a little bit because of some of the unfortunate timing on getting the offensive threats onto the field, usually resulting in Stevie's offensive core going down before accomplishing too much. Despite that, offensive threats like Haunter, Absol, and Rhyperior absolutely require a lot of respect, no matter how they've been performing up until now. But speaking of which, do you know what Pokemon doesn't demand any respect from me in my prep? Dottler, which I guess can set sticky webs? Apart from that though, I don't see a single productive thing it can do against my team, so I'm not at all scared of it. Strangely enough, I do have a suspicion it's coming to this battle, if only because we're approaching the end of the season, and it has yet to make its required one appearance. So you might see a little bit of prep for it on my side, but I'm not overly concerned. Next up is going to be Mawile. That Steel Fairy type is one of the best defensive typings in the game, with Intimidate backing it, but its matchup spread against my squad is pretty bad, with its only really good use cases being against Aromatisse or Kangaskhan. Corsola Galar is also a nice defensive piece that annoys physical attackers with Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap, but funnily enough I have plenty of special attackers that would love to exploit it in return. I do love this little guy, especially after my reliance on him for my Gym Leaders team in Season 7, but this just kinda isn't his place. As far as more believable rings, Rhyperior is a much more threatening option than anything I've discussed so far, but it's also very exploitable, with multiple strong special attacking options on my side. This is a Pokemon that will force a lot of specialized prep from me, with some super effective special attacks I need to make sure are on my team, and that is notable in the Teambuilder, but the prep I'm going with does kind of trivialize it. And for the last slot, I think Appleton just drops a bit from contention, because well, this is another favorite of mine, actually. It's surprisingly hard to take down, with Thick Fat shoring up that ice weakness, and actually giving the unique title of being a grass type with a fire resistance, which is really cool. But it doesn't do that much back to me, which is why I don't think it's going to come. Its claims to fame are going to be Leech Seed and Apple Acid, I think, which both have pretty clear answers on in the team I'm going to bring. So that is 5 defensive, or at least slow, bulky Pokemon that don't make the top 6 in my eyes. I think you know the team style I'm more afraid of. And we'll kick that off with Poliwrath, which is the top of the threat list for me. It has a strangely great matchup into my team. Strong water and fighting stab is surprisingly hard to deal with, and this thing has coverage for anything I might want to switch in. It speed ties with Decidueye and nails me with Dark Lariat or Ice Punch, which is the option it would also use to KO Noivern. It gets Earthquake for Pincurchin, as well as Poison Jab for Aromatisse. Between its stab moves and those options, that's super effective coverage for my entire team. Now, obviously you can't run all that at once, but until I figure out what set it's running exactly, I don't really have a guaranteed safe switch-in for it. Supporting the Poliwrath is Talonflame, which is a great utility Pokemon that can switch into the grass, ground, and fighting moves aimed at the rest of the team, and use the free turns to either clear away hazards with Defog, gain momentum with U-turn, burn something with Will-O-Wisp, or, just attack. I'm not actually too afraid of the bird, it's not that strong or anything, but it was Stevie's first round pick, and it shows through the sheer amount of utility options it has. He'll definitely find some use for it. Magneton is a big special attacker that actually beats both of my main specialty defensive walls, with stab moves to cover for both Aromatisse and Lapras, and it can bolt switch around to pivot, while still threatening Mudvale with a strong Flash Cannon. Luckily, my 2 electric types will check it because they resist its stab moves, but it's still strong, it's still a big offensive threat. And Haunter, as I discussed earlier, is another problematic threat. It sits at a base 95 speed tier, just above most of my team, and spams ghost and poison moves to pretty good effect. My good resists to his stabs are basically limited to my low tiers, so there's potential for this thing to get out of hand after breaking down just a few of those lower tier checks, especially with a defensive backbone to fall back on, mostly in the form of Yuxi. which is a very bulky pivot and levitate mon that helps Stevie avoid those terrain-boosted rising voltages. Yuxi, like Mesprit from last week, has a lot of different sets it can run, and I'm not sure what it'll be doing. The most I can count on is a bulky U-turn pivot and probably Stealth Rock. This and Talonflame should probably be the pivots that force certain switches and capitalize on them with U-turn to bring Stevie's big threats in. And lastly, Stevie has one more Pokemon that has not yet been brought to a battle at this point. It's very threatening. Absol is a strong, frail attacker that is slower than Haunter, so might feel a little more manageable, but it does bring a powerful Sucker Punch to the table, potentially halting a Raichu sweep early. It's also just pretty threatening, with Stab knockoff to force items off of my Pokemon at best, and take major KOs at worst, with Iron Tail as good coverage for my best Dark Resist in Aromatisse. For my side, I started prep with a Alolan Raichu, who's looking to have a great time either busting a hole in the opponent's squad or cleaning up late game. We're running a substitute set as the best way to bypass Absol's Sucker Punch, and since I don't want to take passive damage from Life Orb and Substitute, I went with a different boosting item in Wise Glasses. This does seem like a weird choice. It's definitely a weaker boost than most items, but it was just what I needed. I wanted a little more power on Raichu's neutral electric coverage for the team, while also pushing the Grass Knot roll on Rhyperior into my favor. Drain and Kiss is fun coverage. It's pretty weak at 50 base power, but actually gets decent damage on Appleton and Absol, so we can pick them off while healing ourselves up. We're running Modest for the power, and Max Speed always outruns Timid Haunter. This Raichu set is a bit weird, but it gives us a great offensive piece to build around, threatening just about everything right off the bat. Of course, to support that, we have Pincurchin with the terrain support. This week we're running Max Physical Defense with Leftovers to be the absolute best Talonflame and Poliwrath switch we can be, and Rising Voltage is all the coverage I'm really looking to have, since the rest of my team will be built to handle the Electric Immune Rhyperior and the Quad Resist Appleton. If I predict either of them switching in on an electric move, I'd actually rather click Spikes to add more offensive pressure against the rest of the team. Lastly, Memento is our filler move of choice because it could potentially give a free sweep to what I believe is going to be my win condition this week. Unburdened THIEVUL is that win condition, looking to pop Electric Seed under terrain and use the defense boost to set up and sweep. THIEVUL can set up on quite a few of Stevie's more defensive Pokemon, and if it gets going, there's not too much stopping it. Dark Pulse hits most of the team plenty hard, and Grass Knot is the main coverage move of choice to hit Poliwrath. It's a little weaker than Psychic, which is also used to hit it at only 80 base power compared to Psychic's 90, but it is, 80 base power, moderately heavy frog there. It does also come with the bonus of manhandling Rhyperior, even without a boost. And Burning Jealousy is our best coverage from Mawile and Absol. There are a lot of Pokemon on my opponent's side that will need to be chipped just a little bit to be KO'd at +2, which is what the aforementioned spikes are for. I'm really excited to get a THIEVUL sweep off. We've done one battle this season showing off Stakeout. Let's show some Unburden this time. Now that we've established our terrain-abusing offense, we need to start paying attention to our defensive pivots to handle some of the big threats I mentioned earlier. I'll start that off with Decidueye, running a defensive set for the first time this season to switch into Poliwrath, Appleton, or Rhyperior, and either Giga Drain or Roost to heal off the damage. With the EV investment, we survive a Banded Jolly Poliwrath's Darkest Lariat, while also outspeeding Max Speed Mawile and Rhyperior. This is going to be our defog user, since with our Grass and Ghost special coverage, we do scare out most of the hazard setters on my opponent's side. Next up is going to be Mudsdale, which is my best switch into Rhyperior with a physically defensive set, and an all-purpose tank as it always is. Rocky Helmet is actually for Absol, since this is my only knockoff switch in, and Helmet is realistically the most useful item if I get knocked on the first turn Mudsdale is in. I wanted to run Rock Slide for Talonflame, but Rock coverage is actually pretty bad against the rest of the team, and I wanted to use the move slot for Payback, which lets us beat Haunter as long as we're healthy enough to tank a hit. And in the last slot, to check that Haunter, we have Kangaskhan, rocking the Assault Vest just like the only other time we've seen her, and this is to better check Haunter obviously, and to a lesser extent Magneton. The EV spread allows us to outspeed Jolly Absol, while also avoiding the 2-hit KO most of the time from Life Orb Haunter Sludge Bomb, and Max Attack ensures that Fake Out into Sucker Punch KOs back every time. Drain Punch is good neutral coverage that allows us to heal up just a little bit, and Ice Punch is being run specifically to hit Appleton harder than anything else on my team can. So that's my squad. Let's see what we're going up against. Alright, Rhyperior, Appleton, and Dottler are here for a much bulkier team than expected. No Absol is fair enough, I guess. Stevie doesn't seem to like it for some reason, but no Yuxi or Magneton is really surprising. and the lack of UC especially might make it harder for THIEVUL to set up. This is still good for me overall though. Like I said, Dottler is not a threat, and we're prepped pretty well for Rhyperior. For the lead slot, the hazard users here would be that Dottler and Rhyperior, so Decidueye is going to be my choice to at least threaten those two out and prevent early game hazards. Good luck to Stevie. And we do see the Dottler lead, that's interesting. Well, looks like Sticky Webs is probably coming out, so I'll start with a Shadow Ball and probably Defog on the next turn. Shadow Ball goes in for good damage, and Trick Room is very interesting. Unexpected, but looking at Stevie's team composition, I guess it makes sense to support the slow attackers of Rhyperior and Appleton. So let's actually look at the goal behind the turn run Trick Room. The worst thing that could happen for me right now is Rhyperior getting in for free with multiple Trick Room turns to abuse. It could actually do a lot of damage to Decidueye. So to prevent that, I'm going to spam Giga Drain into the Dottler and either catch the Rhyperior on switch-in or force a different option out of Stevie. Here we actually see the Dottler actually, it goes for recover, which is kind of weird. Wouldn't you either sack this for the Trick Room turns or preserve it for a later setup against Shadow Ball? So as it heals, I just Giga Drain for a little bit of damage, and at this point, another Shadow Ball doesn't even KO, so might as well go for that, as the Dottler sets up an Iron Defense. That's interesting. Glad I went with the special coverage for this match. I'm betting the last move is Body Press then, which, if that's the case, then this Dottler can't even touch me, which is a little funny. On the next turn, I'll just apply Giga Drain pressure, continue forcing that Rhyperior not to switch in. And on this turn, we actually move first to get the KO, which means this little guy was probably going for Trick Room again, so that's fun, I guess. Alright, there is only one turn of Trick Room left, and Rhyperior shouldn't be one-hit KOing me, so Trick Room has successfully been stalled out. Talonflame is going to be the answer, and that makes a lot of sense, so I will switch to my Talonflame answer in Pincurchin, and as we switch in and set up our terrain, we take Flare Blitz pretty easily, less than a third. Well, the Talonflame definitely isn't staying in, so Spikes will be the play to make progress against any switch-in. And it does U-turn out just for a little more damage, and we do see the Spikes set up on Rhyperior. Very cool. So if previous trends in the season are any indication, this Rhyperior is probably about to use Swords Dance, and that would give me a free Decidueye switch to KO it with Giga Drain. But I really don't want to switch into something like a Stone Edge with the bird, so call me cautious, but I'll go with the safer answer in Mudsdale. And as I bring it in, the Rhyperior does indeed set up to +2. With Stamina, I should be able to avoid the 2-hit KO from Earthquake, so I will just click Earthquake myself. And funnily enough, I do actually outspeed the Rhyperior here, likely built for Trick Room, and then I take about half my health in return from its Earthquake. I'll outspeed and outdamage him on the next turn though, thanks to my defense boost. And so I'll just click it again, but I think Stevie recognizes the losing matchup there and swaps out to Appleton. It's actually not insignificant damage from the Spikes and Earthquake, which is nice. But from here, Decidueye is built as my safest answer to Appleton, so I'm just going to go ahead and switch that in. And then we're going to take very little damage from the incoming Apple Acid. I'm not sure what Stevie wants to do here, but Shadow Ball is pretty easy damage into anything. I'll just go with that, chip down the Appleton maybe. And then there's the switch. Haunter, yeah, that is an easy KO. And a big threat down, I'll take it. That's very cool. That frees up Kangaskhan to be used as a switch into anything else at this point, which is great. We no longer have to be preserved for the ghost moves. So, nice, we have extra resources. So, after that KO, Talonflame is back in as the revenge. And this time I'll just switch out to Mudsdale to preserve Pincurchin's health a little bit. We actually do take this Flare Blitz pretty handily, and that Rocky Helmet gets a little extra damage on the Talonflame, which is nice. Let's take the opportunity to set up rocks, since we will survive anything, as Talonflame decides to U-turn out, taking even a little more chip, which is nice. We get to see about half health into Appleton, and then we do get those rocks up, which is nice. I'll note at this point in the game, Appleton is chipped down, and enough hazards are up that Poliwrath will be chipped down to go down to a boosted THIEVUL Grass Knot. So from here on out, I will be planning to set up that THIEVUL sweep. For the Appleton, let's just bring in Decidueye to tank the hit. And that's going to turn out to be a Draco Meteor. And now that Appleton is at -2, that's an easy switch in for just about anything. So might as well just go with Pincurchin to tank a hit and set up terrain. And we tank the body press. Interesting play into Decidueye, but I'll take it just fine. I'll actually double it back into Decidueye here just to sponge a hit. But I actually end up staring down the Rhyperior. That feels like an easy Giga Drain. So we're just going to go for that. No issues here. And it does go into Talonflame, which it makes a lot of sense. It was a pretty obvious play, and I maybe could have played around it, but this is fine. Mudsdale's pretty chipped down, so it could make a pretty easy sack into the Flare Blitz for a safe THIEVUL switch in. And that is what I'm looking for in this terrain. So let's bring in Mudsdale. Take out the last HP. Oh, Roost. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's going to take me down with Brave Bird on the next turn, and unfortunately, terrain has just run out. That's a nice play from Stevie. No sweep from me yet, and the Talonflame's at higher health. So let's just bring in Pincurchin to get terrain up again. We do beat the Talonflame. And now Kangaskhan will lead my pivot through the bird. We just want to take some attacks. We take a Flare Blitz and get burned. Not ideal, but maybe we can use this to our advantage. Surely on this turn, the Talonflame has no problem roosting on a half-powered Kangaskhan, right? Well, actually, let's first just go for a light fake out to bring it down to below half. Very nice. Now it'll roost, for sure. And this actually keeps it off of max HP if it does that, in case it has Gale Wind for some reason. And yeah, so that means THIEVUL time. So yeah, THIEVUL over Raichu, because Appleton is pretty far out of Draining Kiss range, so Raichu can't get a full sweep out, especially in those limited terrain turns. And we do pop that Electric Seed, and that is a fat roost. So let's go ahead and get our free Nasty Plot up. Yep. And the Flare Blitz on this turn shows that we could have taken another if we needed to, but better safe than sorry. Alright, we are at doubled special attack and speed, and boosted defense for good measure. This should be the game. Dark Pulse is going to be moved for Talonflame, and we do take it out easy outspeed, and then Poliwrath comes in to take the Dark Pulse, but the Stealth Rock and Single Area of Spikes is enough for me to guarantee the KO on most sets. Grass Knot is going to be enough. Appleton is going to get chipped down by Hazards 2, and bam, that is a nice Dark Pulse, and then Rhyperior is going to come in last, and also fall, this time to the Grass Knot. Taking the game 5-0 with 4 KOs by THIEVUL. GG to Stevie and the Oricorios. I'm really happy with how I played this game. I was able to apply consistent pressure without really taking any risks until the end game when I identified my win condition and all the requirements that needed to be fulfilled for that win con to work. In this case, THIEVUL needed to switch in during terrain on a non-threatening turn with a chipped Appleton and Hazards to take Poliwrath down to Grass Knot range. We were able to make those conditions work, which is great. I gotta say, THIEVUL is just so cool, and I'm glad I was able to show off that Unburdened set at least once this season. Definitely the MVP for this game, not to mention team staples like Pincurchin contributing some good bulk and hazards, as well as Decidueye showing off his defensive prowess this time, and Mudsdale completely denying a Swords Dance boosted Rhyperior. That's ridiculous. I'm really loving the team this season. It's coming together well. That'll be a wrap for Week 7. We are on a 7-0 record for the season, and actually guaranteed the #1 seed for the playoffs at this point, as the next best record for any of the other coaches is 6-2. I'm still looking forward to a great Week 8 to cap off the season, where we'll have one last big challenge before playoffs against the Route 1 Burbs. They've been playing super well this season with a scary offense team, so join me next time to see if we can take that win and go undefeated for the regular season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.